All right, so this is the big question. As we know, we're all waiting for a COVID-19 vaccine. So, when and if it's ready, should it be mandatory? A new Leger poll indicates that 40% of Canadians do not think it should be mandatory. What about you?
Well, I want to first go to Cassandra, who wrote to
Mm.
us on Facebook, and she said, I'm very pro vaccine, but the idea of a vaccine that's been rushed and no long term effects that have been documented make me very nervous. And I'm not sure I'm comfortable with injecting that into my body or my children. And Cassandra, I feel like, you're inside my head because I feel very similarly. I'm very pro vaccine, but this kind of global rush to find this shot, it does make me nervous. I wonder if it will be tested as vigorously in terms of not only safety but efficacy. Ultimately, if we get to the point where it's like the flu shot is right now, which again, I'm pro flu shot, but it's kind of the message that we've been getting every year is it may help, or it does help, but it's not a guarantee that you won't get it. I'm not sure if that was the message that was given once this vaccine is invented, that I would necessarily be super enthused if people were saying, yeah, and you must take it. It's that little piece there. Ultimately, though, I think if there is a vaccine, I will do what the majority does, because I hate that person who basically kind of is like, oh, you know what, I'll let everyone else deal with the vaccine and then they'll protect me. I think that person is morally bankrupt.
It's interesting because all sorts of people are weighing in, Sin, including Karen on Facebook. Karen says, very difficult to say voluntary when we live in a universal healthcare system. If I get a shot and it costs the system $100 and my neighbor doesn't and gets sick and that costs the system $50,000, that's not right. It's an interesting take on it, Karen. And I think, is it really optional? Like, think about this scenario, okay? They say it's optional, but by not taking the vaccine, all of a sudden you can't travel because at borders or at airports, at security checkpoints, they're asking to see proof of you having the vaccine in order for you to get on a plane. What if work is impacted? What if your employer says, you know what, if you're going to be in this building every day, you need to be vaccinated? What if you can't get into stadiums, sports arenas, concerts, because before you walk through those doors, they say, guess what? We need to see proof of a vaccination. Like, that's kind of what I see ahead. So, voluntary, but maybe not voluntary.
Yeah, it's funny because it's almost like saying, sure, you can have a choice to not have it, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to walk around life the way that you did before. I think it's a great point, Mars. I always
Yeah.
go down to the science, and I've been saying that over and over again. We've all been saying that. What are the doctors saying? And I do understand that people feel like there's a rush to the vaccine because it does feel like this is such a pandemic that we want to get on top of it. And people say the only way to stop it is with a vaccine. But I think it ultimately comes down to two things for me: trust and risk and benefit. And so, time and time again, when you look at the history of vaccines, by and large, they are so safe. But the reason why they're so safe is because the testing is so rigorous. The World Health Organization is the central body that is monitoring the over 115 vaccine development projects that are happening around the world right now. And the reason why you need hundreds of development projects is because so few will actually meet the threshold for safety and efficacy. The reason why it's 12 months or 18 months, some people saying 4 years before we can even see a vaccine, the entire reason why it doesn't take 2 weeks is because of safety. And that actually makes me feel really, really good. They say of all the projects going right now, if you're lucky, 6% will get through. And even of that 6%, we're lucky if one actually is successful. And the flip side is risk and benefit. They say historically with vaccines, the most people are at danger are the people getting sick from the disease, not getting sick from the vaccine. And those are odds that I can stand behind.
Let's go back to social media and our audience because we got a message on Facebook from Ariel. And Ariel says, those who refuse vaccines should have to give up their passports and pay for their own health care. That is Ariel's take. My take is I'm like, bring it on. I'll take whatever. I'll even be like a guinea pig. There are people volunteering to be part of these trials. I would do that too. Part of the reason is because I don't want it. I don't want to get it. but also because I have immune compromised people in my life and they can't be vaccinated. They can't get the flu vaccine. They probably wouldn't be able to get any vaccine that's developed for COVID-19. So I have to get it to protect them.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting times we're living in too, because as we talk a lot about, we are socially connected and people are sending around articles. And I think this is the time when more than ever, we do have to talk about people spreading pseudoscience around. And that's something that does concern me, is that even though, like, I was actually kind of shocked that there was as much of a divide in terms of the vaccine, because as much as I understand we have questions and we should have questions, I think ultimately we have to believe in people who know more than we do and who have studied the science behind these things and have, like Mel, you said, done the proper testing. Because if we don't trust in those institutions, we're in a real troubled situation even beyond the pandemic. I think these are the times when we need to come together and trust in our institutions. And I know that it's important to question, it's important to do the research, but I hope we are looking at reliable sources when we're doing that research and coming to grounded conclusions.
Yeah, it's a great point that you bring up. I will say I've just been sort of dabbling to find out like exactly who are these labs that are doing the development. And there is literally, ladies, billions of dollars being poured in to the majority of which will not actually be successful. But there's huge firms. And I know some people don't like the name Big Pharma, but I'd rather know that there is somebody who has a history of creating many successful vaccines than maybe a smaller lab that doesn't have it. You know, having said that, innovation is key these days. Here's the thing. We know what life looks like without a vaccine. This is it. This is what life looks like without a vaccine. This is not the world that I want to live in. I want to live in a world that doesn't look like this. That's number one. And number two, the scientists are saying this. The biggest fear should not be the vaccine. The biggest fear should be that when a vaccine is developed, that there's enough to go around. When the H1N1 influenza broke out, wealthy countries hoarded the vaccine. And we create more of haves and have-nots. That's what scientists are worried about, not about the vaccine, but who's going to get it in the end. And I think that's something that we should also take a look at as this conversation, no doubt, will evolve.